All right, today's gospel reading will be from Luke chapter 11, verses 42 through 51. I'll be doing an explanation according to the blessed Theophylact, who was an archbishop from the Ohrid region of Bulgaria from the 11th century. But woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manners of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. These ought ye to have done, yet not to leave the other undone. Woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye love the uppermost seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are as graves which appear not such, and the men that walk over them are not aware of them. Then answered one of the lawyers, and he said unto him, Master, thus saying thou reproachest us also. And he said, Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laden men with burdens grievous to be borne, and ye yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers. Woe unto you, for ye build the sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. Truly ye bear witness that ye approve the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them, and ye build their tombs. Therefore also said the wisdom of God, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute, that the blood of all the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the world may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, who perished between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. And the explanation here, the Pharisees would make a tithe of the most insignificant items, supposedly to avoid transgressing the law. And if someone were to accuse them of concerning themselves with trivia, they would defend themselves by citing the law which commands the people to give to the priests as an offering tithes of everything. The Lord therefore is saying, just as you do not neglect these small matters, so you ought also to concern yourself with the judgment and the love of God. Because they were unjust, ruining orphans and widows, he says, you ought to have judgment, meaning you ought to judge fairly. And because they were scorners of God, carelessly performing holy deeds, he commands them to have the love of God. For he who loves God does not perform with scorn the deeds of God. Perhaps, it seems to me, since there are two types of love of God and love of neighbor. He is suggesting these two loves when he speaks of judgment and the love of God. On the one hand, judgment indicates love for one's neighbor. To judge one's neighbor fairly and to not tyrannize him comes from having love towards him. On the other hand, when a man is completely turned towards God, then he has love of God. When a man loves his neighbor, not for some worldly reason or because of a shameful passion, but according to God, it can be said that this is that love of God, which God has commanded and which he accepts. The Pharisees wanted everyone to honor them and to address them as teachers when they saw them in the markets. You are like tombs, he tells them, which teem with corruption, but on the outside they shine with marble. And when the men see them, they do not realize what they are standing on. If they did, they would be disgusted by the loathsomeness of what is inside. The lawyer foolishly brings censure down upon himself. The lawyers were different from the Pharisees. The Pharisees thought of themselves as ascetics who were set apart from all the others. But the lawyers were scribes and teachers who answered other men's questions about the law. The lawyers loaded men down with burdens grievous to be borne by commanding the people to observe those particulars of the law which were difficult to keep, while they themselves did not touch those burdens with one of their fingers. That is, they themselves did nothing of what they commanded to others to do. When the teacher himself does the things which he teaches others to do, he has lightened the load by his own example, and thus he gives encouragement and consolation to his students. But when he does nothing of what he teaches, then the burdens indeed seem heavy to the students, when they see that even their teacher cannot do them. The Lord shows that these Jews are descendants and inheritors of the wickedness of Cain, by saying that all blood shed from Abel to Zacharias shall be required of this generation. He says, For you slew your own brothers, the prophets, just as Cain slew his brother Abel. Therefore, some have quite fittingly likened Cain to the people who slew the prophets, and have likened Lamech to those who slew Christ. Cain's punishment was less than Lamech's, for it is written, Vengeance has been exacted 7 times on Cain's behalf, but on Lamech's behalf 70 times 7. That is, they who slew Christ were scattered into captivity from which they did not return. Who then was this Zacharias, whom they slew between the altar and the temple? Some say that he was the Zacharias of the Old Testament, the son of Jod, who was stoned, as can be learned in the book of Kings. Others say that he was the father of the forerunner who placed the Theotokos among the virgins after she had given birth to Christ, and had her stand in the place in the temple where the virgin stood. This place was between the temple and the outer altar of bronze. This is why they slew him. Some expected and waited for the Christ to come and be their king, but these Jews did not want to be ruled by a king, and so they slew this holy man Zacharias, who confirmed that the virgin had given birth and that the Christ had been born, who would be their king. But they rejected him because they did not want to live under a king.